Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and I have started watching The Last of Us, currently 5 episodes deep, and really blown away by this series. Something in particular that I'm noticing is how great the world building is. When people think of world building, they think of the environments, the backstories, the political landscape, or like the creatures that exist in this world. And all of this is very well fleshed out in The Last of Us thanks to stunning production design and visual effects work. But there's another element to what I would consider world building that I'm noticing is really strong here, and that's the effect that this world has on the people inhabiting it. And for a lack of a better term, I'm gonna label this as emotional world building, and spoilers will be ahead for episodes 1 through 5. Far more than being just about zombies and action, The Last of Us is concerned with the emotional toll that a world where death is ever present would have on its characters. How do people in the world respond to this environment? What lengths do they go to protect the few loved ones that they have left? How do they protect themselves from the pain of losing somebody they love? How do they form attachments to people in a world where people can die at any day? And how do they cope with such a seemingly hopeless world? In the show's pilot episode, it takes time to establish the world before the outbreak, which is just like ours. It takes place in a suburban neighborhood, the kind where it feels like nothing could possibly go wrong. And then one day, everything disturbingly comes crashing down, and Joel loses his daughter, his whole world. Both his internal world and the world at large will never be the same. And through Pedro Pascal's performance, we can see the transformation from pre-outbreak Joel to post-outbreak Joel in just how he carries himself and how weathered he is. And Joel now really doesn't have any hope for the world. Pretty much everything that he has ever built, everything he has ever invested anything into is gone, except for maybe his brother. A lot of Joel's identity was built on this idea of himself as this protector, and he feels that he failed at the one job he had. And a question I'm asking myself through the first few episodes is, if Joel feels like this world is so beyond repair, and that he is so beyond repair, what keeps him going? And Ellie actually asks him this in the car ride in episode 4, if you don't think there's hope for this world, why keep going on? And Joel's response is, you keep going for family. And pretty much every character in The Last of Us is living for somebody they love. And we also see what happens when they tragically lose those people. Sometimes they kill themselves. Or like Kathleen, they go on a selfish quest for revenge. What's remarkable about the show is that even when it detours into other characters' stories, it feels like we're also learning about Joel and Ellie, because so much of who they are and so much of who everybody is just a response to this world. To say, like, why is there a whole episode dedicated to these side characters like Bill and Frank would be completely missing the point. Bill and Frank achieved the impossible, the ideal in this world. They've grown old loving each other and have successfully protected each other. They won. And like I said earlier, everybody in the world seems to be living for somebody else, except for Bill at the beginning of this episode. He's kind of an interesting case study of how well somebody can do and how they can thrive in terms of their survival when they have nobody else to care about. But although Bill had really convinced himself that he didn't need anybody else in his life to be fulfilled, when Frank came along, his human nature sort of kicked in, because really there's nobody who doesn't want somebody to love and to care for. But as we see with Joel, in a world where it's easy for loved ones to be taken away, loving itself is a risky task. The reason Joel is slow to open up to Ellie is because he doesn't want to be hurt if he loses her. And even with Tess, he wouldn't label that as a relationship, probably as a way of protecting himself. In one of the best lines of the show, Bill says, "I wasn't afraid until you came along." Opening yourself up to the potential for immense pain is built within the contract of loving someone. But at the end, Bill is clearly glad that he opened himself up to that fear and to that risk because he got the happy ending. This episode basically shows the audience what it's like to win this game that everybody is playing. This balance between survival and love. And it shows us that it is achievable. And Bill and Frank's story is not just about Bill and Frank. It's about what every character is striving to achieve and why they're fighting. The story of Sam and Henry, as well as Kathleen and her brother, are not pointless detours or filler by any means. They're showing us how different people deal with the world that they are in. And after we're told these stories about these supporting characters, I actually do feel like I come away with a greater understanding of our main characters, because the world that they live in has been fleshed out and I understand why they respond to it in the way they do. Family is not the only thing that people in this world fight for, however, although it is Joel's primary motivation. Other people are fighting for a brighter future, and this is what Ellie represents. And I think that's the biggest difference between Joel and Ellie. In a way, Ellie literally represents hope for the future because of her immunity and the possibility that she could be studied and helped to find a cure. But her character is also just remarkably starry-eyed for this bleak world. She's fascinated by relics of the past and the escapism that jokes and music used to provide to people before the outbreak, this wonderful world that must have existed before her. And although she's not experienced that world, she dreams of being a part of it. Where Ellie uses the past to give her hope for the future, Joel views the past as evidence for why the present and the future are just bleak. When Ellie sees the crashed airplane and thinks, wow, that must have been really cool that you got to fly up in the sky, Joel's like, yeah, well, actually it sucks because sometimes you get crammed into a middle seat and it's not really that fun. Back to that moment where Ellie asks Joel, why bother going on if you think there's no hope in the world? Joel tells Ellie, you haven't seen the world, so you don't know. The pain Joel experienced was so brutal, he feels that if anybody else experienced this, they would also know that there is nothing worth saving. This is why he views Ellie's optimism as foolish. And he also views the optimism of people who are in the Fireflies as foolish. The Fireflies are the guerrilla group fighting against the tyrannical government organization Fedra, and he calls their mission a pipe dream. A Firefly also kind of represents these little blips of light in darkness, and people who are Fireflies are fighting for the better future for everybody. And Joel has just no understanding of this. As we've established, he just fights for purely his family members. This is an example of how the political conflict that the show has crafted fits back into the motivations that different characters have. The political conflicts we learn about inform the characters and vice versa. We also come to understand the brutality that many individuals and groups act upon as desperate measures to protect the people they care about. Nobody is a one-dimensional villain or just like a savage. Even after one group tries to kill Joel, he admits that he and some others that he used to band together with used to use those same tactics in Boston. The people in this world go to great lengths to protect their in-group, even if it means murdering other people. Henry is tormented by the fact that he did this, killing a great leader to save his brother, and he struggles with whether or not this makes him the bad guy. And in this world, that is what it takes to survive to some extent. Even Tess says that her and Joel are not good people. They do what they have to do to protect each other and survive. As for the sets themselves, I think the physical design of the show plays into its themes. The world is crumbling and destroyed, and yet there are these overgrown plants everywhere, which in a way might even be its own kind of metaphor for life kind of finding its way through the rubble and growing despite all the destruction, which in a way is really what the show is about. But on a darker level, even the fungus itself, which is a product of nature, is attempting to spread and reproduce. So in a sense, the show represents the best and worst of life, its ability to produce creatures who can love and dream, as well as its ability to destroy. And in every new set piece that our characters walk into, it feels like we learn more about the emotional truth of this world. The underground settlement, for example, with all the happy drawings of kids and like suns all over the wall, is an example of humans inventing positivity and hope, similar to the drawings that Sam creates of himself as a superhero and draws all over the attic. And also the comics and the joke books that humans have made to bring joy to others that Ellie appreciates. The remains of the Boston Museum don't just feel like a fun set piece where zombies can like attack them and there can be an action scene. The museum is a reminder of the world that once was for hundreds of years. It really feels like every piece of the show is playing into something deeper. And there's so much that we learn about characters outside of the main two and about all the environments and the political landscapes, and all of that adds in an indirect way to the development of our main characters. And although world building usually represents like environments and lore, this show really made me feel like it can be more than that. So I am really loving this show so far. As a side note, I have not played any of the games, and I just have to say that episode 3 did kind of destroy me. Can't wait for the rest of the series. Maybe I will make a different video on the show after it is done. You know, I just thought even the title itself is kind of this metaphor. The Last of Us, obviously it's like who remains after the apocalypse, but it's also like what is left of ourselves after this event. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What is left of you?